Now at this time, I would like to invite Los Angeles County Assessor Jeff Prang to the podium for some words of welcome.
Thank you very much, Ted, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're all thinking there's no better way to add a little excitement into your evening than hearing a speech from the County Property Tax Assessor. Although maybe something from the Mosquito Commissioner might be a little more interesting. But we appreciate you coming here today. This is the first time we've ever done this as Ted. I'm sorry, I hope that's not going to be all night long. We should move someplace else. But my name is Jeff Prang. I'm the LA County Assessor. Just a couple notes about our office, a few things you may or may not know. The first thing about our office is that we are not the guys who collect your taxes. The people who collect taxes have a very intuitive title. It's called the tax collector. You're the ones who determine what the value of the property is. As assessor, I'm one of 3 elected officials countywide. Everybody knows the other 2. It's the sheriff and the district attorney. I've kind of forgotten the 3rd one. The assessor's office is responsible for assessing all taxable property in the county. That includes the most obvious, land and buildings, but it also includes business personal property, furniture, equipment, machinery, fixtures, but it also includes mobile homes, aircraft, both commercial and general aviation aircraft, and boats, which is why we're all here today. And for some odd reason, it also includes racehorses. We are the largest local assessment agency in the United States. About 1,400 employees. We're responsible for determining the value for about 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually, which last year was valued at nearly $2 trillion. That's with a T. And it generates about $24 billion in property taxes, which goes to schools, cities, and county services. You know, about 100 years ago, before a lot of government reforms, the assessor was compensated with a percentage of the assessment roll. And I was thinking, 1% of $2 trillion, that might seem fair. What do you think? But in a lot of ways, the assessor's office is the most important local government agency because no other government agency can do their job until we've done ours. If we don't do our job well and thoroughly, then money that should be going into schools, safety, hospitals is left on the table. Over the last couple of years, we've done a number of research. So that's really annoying. We started doing a lot of resource fairs for homeowners, for commercial property owners, and this is our first venture into helping with boat owners. We're hoping we're going to give some information that will be useful in helping you to comply with that annual statement and understand what all the different moving parts are, what we're able to do, and what we're not able to do. There's a couple things, just a few extracurricular things I wanted to mention for your information. We have a lot of people here who are experts in the field who are happy to answer your questions. If you also own real property, we have a lot of information for you as well. There's some information in the back of the room we encourage you to pick up. One thing, if you own property, that I want to encourage you to do is to sign up for what we call the Assessor's e-Service account. This will allow you to establish an online profile with our department for your property. It'll allow you to do a lot of things that in the old days you had to do in person at one of our offices or do by mail. Now you can go online, you can do a change of your mailing address to make sure all the information goes to the right address. Also, if you own a home, I think you probably may be aware that there's been a lot of fraud in recent years, title fraud, fraud against deeds. One of the challenges is if somebody tries to commit fraud against you, you may not know about it for like 30 to 45 days. That's how long it takes a piece of mail to leave the registrar of recorder's office and get to your house. If somebody's attempting to commit fraud against you, that's too long. Now you can go into our website, you can register your email address with your property, and anytime something's reported against your property, like a grant deed of trust, or a lien, you'll get an email in 48 hours. And you can determine whether or not that's appropriate or not. But there's information in the back of the room on how to subscribe to that service, and we encourage you to do so. So tonight, tonight's town hall, since we've never done this before, we're going to specifically deal with boats and other waterbound vessels, and we value about $26,000 every year. That includes jet skis, sailboats, cruisers, motor yachts, tugboats, barges, and more. We probably go on infinitum. Our subject matter experts are going to explain everything there is to know about both assessments, registration, property statements, as well as valuable resources for your benefit. We're really pleased that the Department of Beaches and Harbor was willing to open their doors to host us here this evening. I want to thank Supervisor Holly Mitchell for helping promote this event. I know a lot of you are here tonight because of that. But I hope this is going to be interesting. We're going to learn a lot tonight, and we'll be back every year in building on the lessons that we learned and based on the questions that you're asking to help your fellow boat owners navigate the very complex world of property tax administration. But with that, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to see you all. I hope that we're going to deliver something to you of value. Okay?
Thank you, Assessor Prang. And we will now begin our presentation portion of today's program. We're lucky today to have 4 subject matter experts from our office that will share some valuable information with you regarding vessel and boat assessment topics. First, Bintri Wu, who's an appraiser specialist with our office, will provide information regarding vessel assessment process, the valuation of your vessel. Then appraiser specialist David Ball will talk about the vessel property statement for Form 576D. And then Tiffany Wu, another appraiser with our office, will provide information on the role that the California Department of Vehicles and the U.S. Coast Guard play in the registration of your vessel. And finally, our appraiser Peter Scheck will discuss the vessel ownership verification form. And please note that we will be available for questions after the presentation, but in the interest of time, we'd like to get to the presentation and then answer questions after. And to kick off the presentation now, I'd like to invite Bintri Wu to the stage. And Bintri will be presenting on the methods that we use to appraise vessels in Los Angeles County. Bintri?
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us on this lovely day to learn about how we assess your vessels. My name is Bintri Wu. I am a appraiser specialist with the Marina Aircraft Division of the LA County Assessor's Office. So the number one question that we get in our office is, how did you come up with a value for my boat? So first off, we have to define what is a vessel. So under the R&T code 1302, it defines a vessel as a watercraft used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on water, but does not include aircraft. So we have a couple of examples up here. We got a nice mega yacht, a sailboat, an inflatable dinghy, and a sea-doo. So the accessibility of vessels. So based on the R&T code, the Article 13, Section 1 of the California Constitution states that unless otherwise exempt by the state constitution or the laws of the United States, all property is taxable. So we generally use 3 criteria to determine whether or not your boat is accessible in LA County. So the first criteria is the lien date. And our lien date is defined as January 1st for the R&T code. So in this case, it's going to be January 1st of 2024. And the next criteria is, bless you. The next criteria is the SSC. We need to determine who owns the vessel. So the vessel would be the person who owns, controls, possesses, or claims ownership on the lien date. The third criteria is the situs. So based on Article 13, the situs is determined as, it states that all property taxed by local government shall be assessed in the county, the city, the district in which it is situated. So if you are a resident of LA County, your boat was here on the lien date of January the 1st, and you live here in LA County, your boat is accessible in the county that it resides. So we're gonna play a quick game, accessible or not. And up here we have a nice Robalo. Jane Doe has a boat at the Shoreline Marina in Long Beach, and we're assuming this is January 1st for the lien date of 2024. And it's been in Long Beach since October of 2022. So is the boat accessible or not? Yes, perfect. That is the correct answer because it meets all 3 criteria. Here on the lien date, it's here in LA County. We determined that Jane Doe owns the boat. Great answer. So next, accessible or not? We're getting some laughs from the crowd already. So Mr. Jack Sparrow here, his boat sunk in 2 harbors off the coast of Catalina Island in October of 2023. Mr. Sparrow provided documents from his insurance company indicating that the boat is a total loss. So is the vessel accessible or not? No. And that is the correct answer. And based on the information that we have, Mr. Sparrow only meets one criteria. It was in LA County. That was it. He didn't own, control, or possess the boat because it's underwater. We have documentation that indicates that it was a total loss. So Mr. Sparrow's boat that's an underwater vessel is no longer accessible in LA County. Fantastic answer. And we have another vessel here. It is a boat. It is located in Long Beach. It's been here since 2016. It costs approximately $25 million and responds to emergency fire situations on the water. Is the vessel accessible or not? What's the answer?
No.
No. And that is the absolute correct answer because, well, actually, it's yes and no. It is accessible, but it is government-owned property, and therefore it is exempt. So one government agency cannot tax another government agency. So that's kind of a trick question. But for the most part, yes, it's not accessible. And this beauty here resembles a Titanic, but it floats. This vessel has been in Long Beach since 1967. It currently is being used as a tourist attraction, a hotel, a museum, and it's rumored to be haunted. Is the boat accessible or not?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it actually is yes and no. Because one, the Queen Mary, due to the last, there was actually a lawsuit, and the management company that operated the Queen Mary actually lost its lease, so it reverted back to ownership to the city of Long Beach. And so therefore, we wouldn't assess it as a vessel because one, it actually doesn't have a documentation number. It's affixed to the land, and it simply floats. It acts as a hotel. But all the businesses on that boat are accessible. So if it's a hotel, a spa, there's a theater, there's restaurants, those are all accessible. But the vessel itself, not accessible.
Who's accessible to the city of Long Beach?
The city of Long Beach, but they're exempt from taxation, so they wouldn't get a bill. So, many of you are wondering, how did we find you? Right? And we use various discovery methods to find you. And what we have here is that the DMV generally reports, they give us a report in terms of all vessels that are owned in LA County. We also get our information from the Coast Guard. So whether your boat has a CF number or if it's documented with the Coast Guard, they provide information to our office. We also get information from your local dockmaster and other assessor's offices. So other counties in LA, in the state. So let's say you were up in Sacramento, you moved down here. Other counties will let us know that you moved here to LA County. And also we do an annual canvass. So the annual canvass means that we have staff members that physically go out to every marina to visit all the boats. We take account in terms of where boats being moved, and we take into account its consideration. So we actually have people that go out. And I don't know if you don't see me out there, but I'm generally wearing a big hat, mask covers my face, a clipboard, and I try not to look suspicious. And last but not least, we have self-reporting. We have a 576B form that many of you have received, and we get information from boat owners. So, the next topic is the valuation of vessels. We generally use 2 approaches to value vessels, which is the cost approach and the sales comparison approach. Those are 2 commonly used methods that we use. So, in this, the cost approach is pretty simple. We take the sales price or historical cost, or we may consider the replacement cost view of the vessel. So, if your boat costs $5 million, we'll take the purchase price and use that as a method to assess the value of your vessel. So pretty simple. The second approach is a sales comparison approach. So we're required by the State Board of Equalization to use 2 nationally published price guides. The BUP guide, the NADA guide. We'll also use comparable sales to determine the value of your vessel. So the BUP guide here utilizes the make, the model, and the year, similar to a car. And it also allows us to make area adjustments. So if you purchased your boat in Florida and brought it here to California, it might cost a little more as if you purchase your boat primarily in Florida. It also allows us to make adjustments for condition and equipment. So the other guide that we use, formerly known as the NADA guide, which is now known as JD Power Connect, has similar features to the Buck guide. We take into consideration the make, the model, the year, but there's no adjustment for location. But it also allows us to add dealer add-ons, factory options, and trailers. So here's a brief spreadsheet that we would normally use to determine the assessment of your vessel. So it looks pretty complicated, but generally we take the average of the Buck guide, we'll take the average of the NADA guide, and average them out. The other lines here allow us to make adjustments in terms of condition, location, and the bottom fields there will generally also use and compare comparable sales. So I didn't put it up here, but soldboats.com here is a website that we'll generally use to find actual comparable sales. So if you have a Beneteau that's 40 foot long and it was built in 2005, we'll search for other Beneteaus that sold close to the lien date to find a value that might be similar to your boat. So what we'll do next is, what if your boat is not in the price guide? So it's not in the NADA guide, it's not in Buck. How do we determine the value of your boat? So let's say you got a custom pirate ship, right? Or you have a unicorn boat. How do we determine the value of those unique vessels when they're not in price guides? Well, we get guidelines from the State Board of Equalization to apply vessel valuation factors. And generally, we will use these factors as a last resort when there's no prices that are available in the price guides. They can be applied to the first year valuations on used models and other assessments that are currently on the roll. And it's small text here, but they're separated by 4 different categories: boats that are under 30 feet, boats that are over 30 feet, sailboats, and personal watercraft like jet skis and dinghies and things like that. So since we have a vessel valuation factor, we're going to do a little math and go over a little exercise. So we have a taxpayer here that decided to purchase a yellow submarine and is a post-pandemic impulse buy for $30 million in 2023. So according to the BOE evaluation factor, it is a vessel that's over 30 feet, and the appropriate factor for that vessel is 0.84. So we would take that $30 million, multiply it by the factor, and we'll get an assessed enrolled value of $25.2 million. And that's how we're going to assess the value of our yellow submarine. So next, the next topic is the Form 576D, and I'll hand over the mic to my coworker, Mr. David Ball.
Thank you, Victor. So I'm going over the vessel property statement. What I would like to stress is, why is this statement important to you? Why is it important to us? How you can file it timely, and how you can avoid penalties. But before we get into that, we're going to look at some things that we do not assess. We do not assess this particular sea ray here. It's probably built by Ford because it's found on the road driving. So you're going to actually talk to the DMV about that particular boat there. So going on to the vessel property statement, you're probably seeing that it says it was due April 1st. Can you hear me with this? So let me address the elephant in the room. It is April 9th. You are late. However, do not fret. It's your first free throw shot. You get one more. You just need to make it by May 7th at 5 o'clock. So we're good. So we also want you to send the statement in. It needs to be sent in by May 7th. You can mail it to us, or you can email it to us at marinair.assessor.lake.gov. So this statement usually comes pre-printed. It will have your name and everything right there in that left box that's blue. It also asks you to fill out section 1 every year, all the time. You need to put in your vessel name, where that vessel is situated, as far as the address and the marine it's in, the slip number, as well as the phone number for your dock master. Okay, section 2. If this is the first time you're filing your statement with us, or if any changes have been made from the last time you filed that statement, then you need to fill out all of section 2.
So that means you need to put in the vessel manufacturer, the model, the year, what have you, as well as if it was purchased, you're bringing it into California, let us know when you purchased it, how much you purchased it for, and so forth. The vessel make and model is very important. We had a taxpayer that had a Ferretti boat. We only had his whole ID number. Ferretti makes 4 or 5 different other sub-brands, Pershing, Riva, Wallycraft, and so forth. And if we didn't get that information from him, we would have assessed it as a Ferretti, and therefore we would have over-assessed it. We don't want to over-assess you. We just want to get it right. At the bottom of this, here's sections 4 and 5. This is where the things that Ventry have mentioned as far as unicorn boats, et cetera. If we don't have information in the price guides, then you're going to want to let us know what type of powerboat you have, whether that be a motor yacht or runabout, or in the sailboat category, a catamaran or a trimaran, and so forth. That way we can actually then assess your boat with the proper class that that boat falls into. So the back side of that page, you're turning that vessel property statement over, you're in sections, you're still in section 2, items 6 through 12. These are probably the most important section. Most important items on this form, I would say even more so, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Current vessel condition, intended use, propulsion, as well as engine fuel, because we know that a diesel boat costs more than a gas boat. And if you don't let us know, we're going to either pick the diesel in error, or pick both and then come up with something that's a blend, which might not hurt you, but we want to get it right. So if we don't get it right, we find out later we're going to get it right at some point in the future. So help us, help you, and we'll get it all together. So we're going to take a look at this boat. This is a deeper dive into vessel condition, and this boat says it's dead or alive, so he didn't even know what condition this boat's in. What condition do you guys think this boat's in? I think it's in poor condition. Okay. So if we saw this boat on Animal Discovery, we're going to mark it as poor. We're going to look at 4 other boats after this, and depending upon the time we see those boats in relation to the time we first assess those boats might be in any condition from fair all the way up to new Bristol. If we saw that 2018 Lagoon in 2018, we would assess it as a new condition boat. A few years later, there might have been some damage that we can't see in this picture. Maybe there's damage on the other side, there's issues going on inside. And we don't know what the inside looks like on the annual canvas, but we tend to believe that if the outside looks good, the inside is probably being taken care of. So if it looks average, we're going to rate it as average. But you can help us out with that by filling this out appropriately. How many of you have kids in the audience? I believe this about my kids, is I believe my kids are the absolute best in everything. I'm probably wrong. You probably believe the same thing. You probably think the same thing about your boat. With that being said, when you put down condition on that boat, don't say it's excellent and then later have remorse and say, wait a second, I didn't mean for you to assess it that high. And then, so you need to give us the answer that everybody else would think about your boat. If it's not above average, it's average to everybody else, that's what you want to let us know. Because we're going to assess it as above average if you let us know it's above average. So same thing, to know, like 2017 Sun Odyssey 519. Exterior of the boat looks good on the outside. Once again, if we caught that in 2017, it might have been new in Bristol. Now, 6 years later, it's probably average, not above average. We're going to value that boat based on average for its age, what you're expecting to see when you see a boat that's 7 years old. Here's the interior, looks good to me, average condition. So once again, boat's probably in average condition. Here are 2 sea-doos. Most of the time, you're not going to get a vessel property statement for this particular boat. We're only sending out vessel property statements for boats we believe have a value of $75,000 or more. If we send you a vessel property statement, you have to respond to the vessel property statement. If you don't get a vessel property statement, then you're also obligated by law if your vessel costs more than $100,000 at acquisition time until we take you off the statement. If you do not file that statement, then you're going to get a 10% penalty. So for every $100,000 of value, you're going to get $10,000 extra of assessable value. And this is not real money, so please don't call me. So you're only going to get about $3,000. But once again, back to this, these jet skis. If you have a jet ski and you have a 2023 Yamaha, there's like 6 or 7 different Yamahas in that size range. Once again, we're gonna assess it either as the top of Yamaha or the bottom Yamaha, or we're gonna blend it all together. If you want us to get it right, you can voluntarily submit a vessel property statement if you so choose and let us know exactly what model we're looking at. So, yes,
If you don't get mail of vessel document statement, are you obligated to print one out and send it in?
yes, we are. If you have a vessel property reporting requirement based on the cost of your vessel, $100,000 or more, then you have to send it in. And you might not get one, but we're gonna send out one at $75,000. And if you don't get that one, then you should probably still send it in, because if you don't send it in, we're going to assess you, and you're gonna say you never got it. And unfortunately, if that mail doesn't come back to us as a return by mail item, then the address must have been good based upon the US Coast Guard or the DMV. Tiffany's gonna talk a lot more about that when I bring her up here, as far as addresses are concerned, but you want to just be proactive. You can also call us or email us. So once again, back to the auto theme at the beginning with the Ford. These 2 boats were new boats that I found on the internet as far as pictures are concerned. The Lamborghini 63, the Aero 460 by Mercedes-Benz. These boats at new would be new in Bristol condition. So we take the buck, the nada, we get the average, and we adjust it upward per the buck guidelines for condition. So this section is the 3rd section of this form. You don't necessarily need to fill this out unless something happened. I like to call this fulfillment 11 section. Did your boat sink last year? Did it burn up last year? Did you have an accident or anything like that? And God forbid, it even has a note on there that says, was it repossessed? If it was, we would need that information. If you give us that information, we will proactively address that issue and reduce the assessment and or cancel the assessment, depending upon what time that thing happened and the documentation that you provide. If this boat is owned by an LLC, right there at the bottom, we also need a list of all the members of that LLC. You have 12 months from the date of that loss to let us know to get an M&C claim going. So there we go. Next. We're cruising into the end of this presentation for me. We're about to drop anchor. We're at the bottom of this statement. You need to fill this out, and it says it needs to be filled out by the assessee, and the assessee is the person who owns, controls, or claims that vessel on January 1st. So that is you, the taxpayer, the boat owner that's in the audience. If you have someone fill this out for you, your CPA, anybody else, a friend, what have you, they need to actually do an authorized agent statement, which basically says that you told them the truth. That way when they sign it, then that they're also telling us what you told them was actually correct. If you do not sign this form, and it comes in by May 7th, we do not have to take it. It is therefore late, and you will have, once again, the 10% penalty for every $100,000 of value. So you don't want to do that. So make sure to sign it. And if you want us to reach out if you have any questions, it's advisable that it's legible, and we have a phone number to reach you. So please do that. So this is an official request for information. It's under 441A, and that also says, once again, that if your boat has a value of $100,000 or more, you're obligated to, at cost, you need to fill this statement out whether or not you receive the statement. It also says that if we send you a statement, regardless of what the value is, if we send you a statement and your boat's worth $12,000, we're going to assess it and put a penalty on it if you do not return the statement. It's not going to cost you that much. At $12,000, it's going to cost you $13,200 as far as the assessment's concerned. But we're still going to up it. We don't want to do that. So if you just get in on time, we're going to be fine. Section 463 is the law that says that we have to put that 10% penalty on. Once again, that's your second free throw shot. You have until 5 o'clock. So get it postmarked, get it in, or email it before 5 on May 7th. If May 7th is a Saturday or a Sunday, and at this point there's no holidays at the beginning of May, but if there ever becomes one, it's the next business day after that date that needs to be in with our office. This statement is confidential. It is a complete secret. So we're not going to tell your neighbors what you put on your vessel property statement. However, if the district attorney asks us for information, the grand jury asks us for information, another taxing authority asks us for information, another county, we have to share it with them, and we will. Any information you provide with that statement, documents, statements, notes, all of those things are part of this actual, that's a property statement in its entirety, and we can use all of it to come up with an assessment and help you out accordingly. So I'm gonna pass this off to Tiffany, but I wanted to bring back the beginning of the statement because the documentation number we have up here, or the CF number, if it's DMV registered or Coast Guard registered, we have that there. Once again, we're asking you to put those numbers here. If you don't put these numbers here, and we catch your boat 3 or 4 years later, we're still going to assess you for things that happened 3 or 4 years ago. And we don't want to do that either. You want your bills now as opposed to getting 4 years worth of bills at some point in the future. So with that being said, I'm going to bring up Tiffany Wu, who is an appraiser in our office. She does a wonderful job every day. She's going to walk you through the CF number registration process in the Coast Guard. Thank you.
David. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tiffany, and I'll be going over vessel registration with the DMV and the U.S. Coast Guard and what role they play with the Assessor's Office. So for state law, DMV registers and numbers all of our vessels if you're not documented with the U.S. Coast Guard. Infantry, as earlier described, R&T Code Section 1302, what defines the vessel. What I like to highlight here is we're guided by this R&T code, but we're also aligned with the vehicle section 9840, and we have the same definition as the state code. So what that means is that not only do we work with the DMV, but all vessels that would be defined and needed to be registered with the DMV is also potentially accessible by the Assessor's Office. So per DMV, what is a boat or vessel that should be registered? They define a requirement, a sailboat 8 feet or more or longer, or a boat that has a motor, electric, gas, or diesel, no matter the size. So here are some examples of what vessels to register. We have power boats, of course, cruisers, sailboats, jet skis. We also would register and assess inflatables and electric surfboards. That might be more of a taboo one, but can anybody guess why electric surfboards would be accessible? What was that? Yes, it has an electric motor. I'm not sure if you can tell, but under here there is the electric motor attached there, and some surfboards have attached motors sell for above $20,000, so there is some value there. So if we want to register a new vessel, you can obtain this application on the California DMV. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. That can be downloaded on the website. I do want to highlight this section here, section 3. It's a bit hard to tell what it says, but basically it describes the location of your vessel if it's different from your mailing address. And what that tells us is not only can we decide the tax rate area per our tax collector and our audit controller, but if that site is or location of your vessel is not in LA County, we will determine that it's not accessible. So in 2022, I wasn't able to find stats or statistics in 2023, but there were over 600,000 vessel registrations, including transfers and new vessel purchases. And DMV will remain a reliable source of information as far as how we tax, what information we can get from each registration. New transfers will provide good sales data for us because a lot of times we get the price and the vehicle, the vessel description directly from dealers, and they report that information to the DMV directly. On the other hand, the used vessels might not be as reliable because as we go down from owner to owner, as the vessel gets older, it's a bit more difficult to prove that a transaction is a public market. So this is an example of a DMV registration for Mr. Mickey Mouse. And he buys this vessel in 2021 and later releases his liability to Mr. Donald Duck. So we'll go through all of the components. What we look at, why they're important for us, so maybe that's something to keep in mind as you register your vessel. So the RO mentions our registered owner or assessee, which is the person who owns, possesses, and controls the vessel. Mickey Mouse is our assessee here, and next to his name, we find a mailing address. And again, the situs, as mentioned, must be reported if it's not the mailing address. And that will determine the taxability, what county has the taxing authority over the vessel. So if you can see, there's a CC 19 above here, which tells us 19, the respective county to tax this vessel would be Los Angeles. But if you were to change this to, let's say, Santa Ana, the city of Santa Ana, that county code would change to Orange County. In that situation, we will refer your information to Orange County. We would not assess it. They would assess it.
That's the situs, not the address.
The situs, yes. It does tell you the CC for each, but if we have the situs, we'll use that county code. We are also told a sold date. It says sold, but to us, that's the purchase date that you report to the DMV. And they also mentioned the RCID right next to it, the OCID. The date that we like to look at for any updates you make on your DMV registration. For example, mailing address, maybe you're updating your description, but a lot of times we look at the date if you update your situs or your mailing address. And sometimes based on that date and the update, we will either forward your tax bill or notices to the correct address, or we may reissue the tax bill. If we know the CF number, we can obtain the vessel description. What's important for us is sometimes this may be, I guess misreported. For example, let's say we didn't report a Bayliner, but instead we report a Sierra. We wouldn't be able to look up a Sierra on our value guide, so the VIN number helps us locate on our websites what the BLB is, the first few digits of the VIN, and that way we know the proper make is a Bayliner, and that's how we determine where to go when we start the valuation process. Here are some other codes that are very useful for us. For example, if we know the hull type, we have a cruiser, and we know what kind of inboard or outboard engine, whether you have gas or a diesel engine, we can narrow down our search and determine a more accurate assessment. So at times, I've seen registrations where the hull material or the propulsion may not be reported, and so, at that point, we're kind of guessing and making our best judgment at that point, but it may not be accurate. The last registration is the MA class that may be noted. It will be listed right next to the body type right here. And what that is the sales price that is reported either by your dealer or by yourself. In this instance, MA tells us the value range of your sales price is $96 and $400 and above. Like the DMV registration might mention, you have a higher sales price, $100,000 and above, as they mentioned. If your vessel's market value is above $100,000, whether we send you a request to file or not, that has to be filed. So this is the form if we want to sell or transfer the title of our vessel to a buyer. Here, I do want to highlight these entries here that we want to mention the sales price, the date, and also the signatures of yourself, the seller, and the buyer. A lot of times we don't get those entries and we may decide that that's not a complete release of liability, and there is a chance that we may not make an ownership change. So please keep the copies of these documents. If there is a complete release, according to the DMV, once processed, it will look like this. It'll pop up on our side as a release of liability, and this was successfully transferred over to Mr. Donald Duck as of July 2022 for the price of $202,000. And some other important information that this registration may not tell us is the condition of your vessel or engine. For example, if it was damaged, there's no way to know, and it's not a requirement to have it reported on your registration. We also may not know the model of your vessel or how it was purchased. For example, if you bought it through an auction or a lien sale, there's a chance that we may not ever know that information unless it was given to us. So please call us if any of those situations apply to you. Now, the DMV will notify the assessor, I believe on a monthly basis, of new vessel transfers and sometimes the status of destruction, abandonment, or if you moved out of the state and that was reported, then they come up on as an update on your registration. Now, not every transfer or registration may be reported or get received timely. In my experience in the last couple of years, it's taken at least a month, maybe 3 or more, for it to completely reflect on our screen. So I always recommend that we all keep copies of all your records and report to the assessor and the DMV of all changes that we make. So question, if I move my vessel, do I need to report it to the DMV? Yes, correct. So according to the Vehicle Code 9865, you must report any update to your mailing address and status within 15 days. And of course, it's the responsibility of the owner or assessee to update the assessor and the DMV of these changes.
So if you're just moving to a different slip, you don't need to do that. It's just if it goes with different marina.
You can just let us know, but we will also catch that through our annual canvas as well. But if you like to do the due diligence, some people just like to be accurate and let us know, and then we'll make the change. Okay, so if you don't register your vessel with the DMV, you can federally register your vessel with the U.S. Coast Guard by obtaining this certificate here, a certificate of documentation. Many of you may be familiar with it already. One thing I'd like to know is that there is a location for the Haiti report here, but I've been told that this isn't necessarily the location of your vessel. And many times I've been told by vessel owners that maybe it's their birthplace or their favorite city that they like to use. But that's not necessarily where we keep our vessels. important to keep in mind when we report these things on our documents. Now, if we have a vessel name or documented number, we can look you up on our internal website, which was made by our own IT department. And they have a lot of information for our marine and aircraft section. And this is what it looks like if we're able to pull your information up. It will give us similar information as DUV. We have the name, but it will give us the vessel name, which will be really important for us to identify you. For example, while we're doing our annual canvas, the vessel description, registration status, if they're active or expired. We will look at that, and then some history of prior vessel names and prior owners. Now, if we can't find it on our internal website, we do utilize the official U.S. Coast Guard website that will give us more information, and sometimes this does yield results that we don't have on our database. The last thing is, this is an example of a bill of sale form. I'd like to mention that this is a report form that we see often at the assessor's, by the assessor staff as proof of ownership, or maybe you want to change from your individual name to an LLC. Sometimes we require documentation for proof of that so that we can make the appropriate change. Please also sign, date, and notarize these. Have it signed and dated by both the buyer and the seller. If not, then we may not consider this a fully executed bill of sale. And I do want to mention, last thing is number 5. Here, many times we'll get these documents and we'll see the actual value that you sold the vessel, but sometimes we have a report of $1 or $10, but unfortunately, we don't consider the $1 value as basis of value. We do have to value the vessel at market value. So now that we've learned about different vessel agencies and what documents we need to obtain for registration, my colleague, Peter Scheck, will talk about verification.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Peter Scheck. I am with the LA County Assessor's Office, Marine and Aircraft Division. And tonight, I'm going to talk about the vessel ownership verification form. This form may be familiar for some of our fellow boat owners. And this is one side of the form. When you turn the form over, it will show different information. It will start with field number 1 and goes down to field number 4, which I will go through in more details later on. So the form applies to vessel owners who may own these type of vessels, but are not limited to these vessels, and they may be of different make, model, year, and size. So here are more examples of the vessels that the boat owners may own who may receive this verification form. It could include inflatables, jet skis, center consoles, or Grand Bank style boats. And like David Paul has mentioned earlier, the vessels that are over $75,000 will receive the 576 vessel property statement form. So for the vessel ownership verification, it's more for vessels that are less than $75,000. So therefore, you may not have received or seen this form if your vessel is valued more than $75,000. And on the form, you will see at the top is the agency where this came from, which is the LA County Assessor's Office, the contact information, and the phone number and email address where you may contact us if you have any questions. And then below that, in the red box, you will see the vessel ID number or assessment ID number. This is where your 3CF or a 200 number will be, depending on how your boat is registered. Where a 3CF is for vessels that are registered via the DMV, and 200 numbers will be for vessels that are registered with the US Coast Guard. And this form applies to any vessels that are registered or located within the Los Angeles County. They may be registered via DMV or the Coast Guard with the Los Angeles County mailing address and or situs address that is within the Los Angeles County. And they may range from anywhere from a residential address, a marina slip, or a storage facility, etc. And the form will indicate that it is due on April 1st of that year. And for this presentation, we will base it off on 2024. And I understand that today is April 9th, but this form, if you miss the deadline, there's no penalty to it, but it may affect how we record the owner's information in our system. So we still recommend you to complete the form for us as soon as possible. And if your boat falls under a certain criteria, you may not need to fill out this form and you may disregard it if there's no change within the last year. And here are some examples of what may happen so that you may or may not need to fill out this form. For example, number one, if you received the 2024 form and the change for your vessel occurred after January 1st of 2024, this change applies to 2025. You can still complete this form for this year, but when we receive it, we will hold it and update the record later on for 2025. And example number two is, if you still own the vessel, it is still at the same physical location and your mailing address has not changed, then you may disregard the form and ignore it. And lastly, if the ownership has changed between January 2nd, 2023 and January 1st, 2024, please complete and return the form back to the assessor's office.
Do you get that at the DMV?
I'm sorry?
Is it at the DMV or now I have to go somewhere else?
So this form is automatically sent out by the assessor's office. You will receive it if your vessel is in your system and it's located in LA County. But usually it's for vessels under $75,000 in value. So on to the more details of the form. Again, at the top of the ownership verification form is the vessel ID number. This number would be something that we will always ask for when you contact our office via phone or email. And field number 1 is if your boat was sold, donated, or traded in within the last year, then you will fill out this section. And field number 2 is if your boat was destroyed, junked, abandoned, or repossessed in the last year. And the field number 3 is when your mailing or physical address of the boat has changed in the last year. And lastly, if your boat permanently moves out of Los Angeles County, then you fill field number 4. On to field number 1. If your boat was sold, donated, or traded in before January 1st of 2024, please complete this section with the new owner's information. And if your boat was sold, please make sure to notify DMV within 5 days of the sale date and keep proper documentation of the bill of sale and other supporting documents for the transaction, because our office will request for such information for verification purposes. And on the form, you will always notice that that it will ask you whether DMV was notified, and it will ask you a couple times because this is a very important step. Please make sure to notify the DMV when any of such changes on the form has occurred in the last year. Again, when you're preparing to sell your boat, or if it's sold, please make sure to keep proper documentation and update the DMV record, or you can also contact the assessor's office to update, so that we can update the record for you in our system. And here is an example of a copy of the bill of sale. It should have both the seller and buyer's information, which include the name, address, and contact phone number. And it should also include the detailed information of the boat, like the DMV registration number, or the US Coast Guard document number, and maybe model, year, or any specifics of the boat. And it should also include the sale date and the signatures of both parties. And notarized forms are also accepted, but it's not a requirement. Moving on to field number 2 is when your boat was destroyed, junked, abandoned, or repossessed. Please complete this section with the date and the details of the event. And again, you must notify DMV, but for this, you will have 15 days instead of 5 days. And further verification may be needed from our office, so please make sure to keep proper documentation of the event. That may include insurance policies, or police report, or photos, etc. Because if we do not have this, the proper documentation, or if we are unable to verify the change or the happening of this event, then we may still continue to assess the incorrect owner. And I don't think any of the boat owners want this to happen to them. Here are just samples of possible issues that might happen to boats, like a boat fire, or a marina fire, or a car crashing into the boats, or the unfortunate event of the boat sinking or submerging in water. And field number 3 is when there is a change in the mailing address or the physical location of the vessel. When this happens, please make sure to include the date of the change and the new addresses. And also, again, please notify DMV of the change when it happens, because without a proper update, we will continue to assess the owners based on the information that is on record. And we may request additional information for verification if you have moved your home to a different home, or if you move your boat elsewhere, then we will need proper documentation to support the claim. And unfortunately, we cannot accept verbal confirmation of the move of your residential address or of the boat. And the tax bill could be generated for the incorrect owner or assessee if the DMV record is not updated properly. And lastly, for field number 4, if the vessel left Los Angeles County permanently, please complete this section. If your vessel is still within California, we will refer it to the proper county so that they will continue to assess your vessel. And if your vessel has moved out of the state permanently, we may request your out-of-state registration or additional information for verification purposes. And if the changes or the supporting documents show a date that is after the due date, which is January 1st of the year of 2024, the changes will be applied to the following year. So, for example, if you sold your boat in January, in the middle of January of 2024, then the change in the system will be reflected for 2025. DMV documents show the sale or move is after January 1st of the current year, then the owner, as shown on January 1st, will still be responsible for the current year's tax bill. So if you sold or moved close to this date, please make sure to update DMV properly so that we will be assessing the correct owner of the boat. And lastly, don't forget to sign, date, and provide a contact phone number at the bottom of the form. Once completed, you may send it back to our office via mail or email. Both methods are accepted. With email, it may be better because you will have an actual confirmation of when you sent it, so you can show the proof to us if we say, oh, we did not receive it. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to call or email our office, which is always monitored by someone, so we will always be happy to answer your calls and assist you in any ways. And thank you everyone, and I will be turning this back to you.
Thank you all for your attention. Let's give another round of applause to our presenters. They did a terrific job in giving you guys some valuable information about what we do and how certain things will affect your assessment. Before we conclude, I'd like to just highlight one other resource that we have. Our Assessor website I have up here on the screen. This is the dedicated marine and aircraft section of the website. There's information on the topics we discussed today. All the forms are available on this website as well, and there is a contact us field there that you can use to also contact us along with some of the additional information that we provided. So please visit that site and check out what's on there. If there's questions that we didn't answer here, there's frequently asked questions there too. And before we conclude again, I'd like to thank the Los Angeles County Department of Beaches and Harbors for allowing us to use this room and welcoming us here. All of our volunteers, other divisions that are here, you made this possible. And again, thank you all for coming out to this event. That concludes our presentation portion. And as I mentioned at the beginning, please come to us at the back tables with our subject matter experts back there for questions, and they're ready to assist you. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the time.